This is the I'm Possible Project show, where we interview real people who have achieved incredible feats in the face of overwhelming odds, showing that impossible is just a state of mind and that anything is possible. I'm your host, Joshua Rivedal. Today, in episode 22, The Past, I talk to Benjamin Tyler. Let's jump right in. Benjamin is a friend of mine, and he is a transformational speaker and creator of Unleash Yourself, which is a program that has changed the lives of people across the world to stand in their potential. He believes that the path to living a fulfilled life is found through the meaning you derive from the work you do, relationships you build with others, and the relationship with oneself. I can definitely attest that Benjamin lives that message in his personal life. He's coached me a little bit on the side on a friendly level, which I appreciate, and I know the work he's doing is really, really good. And he also happens to be an author in our new I'm Possible book that's coming out August 23, 2017. So I'm stoked to have him on board. Benjamin, thanks so much for joining us on this interview today, brother man.
Thanks for having me. I got the book today, and it's just like, yes, it's happening. It's out. Fruition is coming, man.
Oof. I know, it's making me, if you can see me, I've got some goosebumps right now because I'm like, oh man, that means it's exciting, and then there's like all these other things to do, so I'm like, my mind is like occupying those spaces. Like celebration with a checklist.
Yep, but you're doing it to yourself, man. You got this podcast. Yep,
self-imposed, right? I need another thing. We're gonna start a television channel in a couple weeks too. Nope, just kidding. So Benjamin, dude, man, that little bio that I read or that I riffed on is from our book. You wrote that for our book, and I kind of riffed on it. But you're more than that. You're more than this business guy, this Unleash Yourself. You're a podcaster yourself, and you do so many things, but you're more than what I just read. And I got a chance to know you a bit about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and we've kind of kept this relationship going. But so I know some of what I want to know about you, but I know our listeners don't know enough. And so I'm curious, would you give us a little bit more of a background on your life, where you've been, where you're going, the Benjamin Tyler experience? Please.
Okay, all right, definitely. My story really started when I was 12 years old, and I sat my mother down in the living room one evening, and I just started bawling and pleading for her to show me some kind of affection, because at that time she was obsessed with making my sister the prom queen. And when she wasn't able to give me what I needed in that moment, I defined myself as unlovable, and that I would never be hurt again by anybody, and that love was something that you earned. So I went out, and my goal in life was to earn love, earn admiration, and really to build a life that other people would envy. I wanted everyone to be like, look at Benjamin, look at everything he does. Isn't he great? Because I needed significance so badly in my life. But I was creating it. I was very successful in school. I made sure I always looked good. I traveled the world in college. I started a nonprofit organization. I had all these frickin' trophies on the mantelpiece. But the more trophies I put up there, the emptier I felt, because I thought that next trophy was finally going to make me feel complete. And just that seeking for validation, that seeking of once I obtain something, I'm going to finally be noticed, led me to drugs and alcohol. And it wasn't just, dabbling with marijuana. I mean, by 16, I was taking ecstasy, and it led me down a path that included gambling and pornography and sex. And I'm 27 years old, living in New Orleans, showering with a garden hose. And I wasn't just broke financially, I was broke on life. And I was still pointing the finger away from me and blaming the world for my life. Like, look what this world has done to me. This is such an unfair, unjust place. And it wasn't until I started feeling where I couldn't blame other people. I got a DUI, but the big thing was I failed a test, and I never failed anything in my life. And this test was going to propel my career, the thing that I loved more than anything, the thing that I was I wanted so badly to have a great career and more money and all of those things, and I failed it. And I remember opening up that letter and just my stomach dropping. And Josh, you know that feeling you get when you have to have a conversation with somebody?
I know it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had that. I had that feeling for 3 days. I couldn't sleep. I was antsy. You know, my stomach was nauseated. And I finally just said it. I said, Benjamin, you're the issue. You are the reason why your life is this way. And if you want the world to bend for you, if you want the world to be what you want it to be, you need to change in it. The world doesn't have to change for you. And I quickly started investing in myself, buying the books, taking, the action. And fast forward 2 years later, I'm living in the greatest city in the world, Manhattan. I got my own apartment in the Upper East Side. I've got a custom-made suit, a $4,000 watch, handmade shoes. And I was riding the subway home late one night, and I'm just like, why am I still so unhappy? Why am I still so unhappy? And the truth is I was still chasing validation. And in that moment, I'm like, I have a story, I have a voice, and I need, from this revelation I'm having, I need to make sure that other people don't live this way. So I started sharing my story, which came, the start of it was an Evolving Lifestyle podcast that you were on a couple of years ago. And it's really morphed into having my own business and not doing the Unleash Yourself program anymore, which was a year ago. Things changed quickly, but running the Client Enrollment Academy, where I help people share their message, monetize it, but more importantly, help impact humanity. And that's a long-winded version of my story.
No, that wasn't long-winded at all. That was all the appropriate amount of pieces that, for me, I needed to fill in for the first puzzle. And that was just getting to know you and hearing about you and hearing about your struggles and your triumphs and how the two affect one another. I've got so many questions and thoughts. I mean, I feel like, first of all, just commenting, I feel like we've lived in a certain sense, some similarities and some parallels in our lives. We have those, that neglect, that emotional neglect as a child. I remember my escape was validation too, and it was fantasy. It was, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to show everybody how great I am. And once people see how smart, and some of this, I've gotten, much of this I've gotten over, but some of it still, it's in my head, I'm like, dude, you're trying to sound like the smartest person in the room. Shut the hell up. Listen,
Well, the thing is Josh, you and I, for our whole entire life, will be triggered by significance. Is this changing how we use that significance? Both of us are speakers. Both of us are trying to help people, and we can channel it that way. Or at least for me, if I'm not channeling it that way, I'm going to seek significance in gambling again, and significance in, sex, and significance in whatever else I choose that's going to validate my existence. You just have to choose how to use that trigger in your life.
It's framing it in a more positive way. And you're so right, because there's two sides to every coin, two sides to every, even addiction. There's a healthy way to drink. There's the middle of the road. There's abstinence, and then there's alcoholism and being an alcoholic and having to live and manage those demons as well. I'm curious about that piece, actually, the use of substances and then the addictions. You actually didn't say this. I'm putting words in your mouth. But you said I sought significance through sex and porn and substances, ecstasy, yada, yada, yada. What did those do for you in the moments? And how did they lend themselves to significance? And for how long did that last, if at all?
So it's a blend of things. So, my drug of choice has always been amphetamines. I love things that are racy and speedy, and ecstasy what I loved about ecstasy was it allowed me to feel comfortable sharing what I felt. It's the drug where people are doing back massages and stuff. It allowed me to be intimate, and I love that. And it allowed me to talk. Why I love speaking. I'm a very big closed off introvert. I've always sought being alone through, not feeling significant enough. And I had a household where there's always fighting going on. So the amphetamines was that. But a lot of the other things, the drinking, the pornography, was just not feeling lovable. And it was a thing, it's that quick validation, that quick hit of dopamine, but then comes the shame. right? Like, falling in the trap of something like pornography is a very shameful thing, and we don't have to get into details on it. But, when you're shamed, the funny thing with shame is you don't avoid it, is you don't feel like you have anything else to go to. So you just keep going deeper and deeper into it. And it's like, I'd wake up blacked out in my car after a night of drinking at the bar with like food all over and urine in my pants. And, there was shame there, but, what am I going to do? I wasn't ready to face the reality. So I'd, change my pants. If it's 8, I'd sleep. And at noon, I'd head back to Marky's bar in New Orleans, and I'd start all over again to, try to hide the embarrassment of that blackout drunk. Like what I say, what I do, like I feel like garbage, and just masking it. So, I guess some of it was chasing the high, like with the amphetamines, but, a lot of the depressant stuff was just this deep whirlwind of shame and not knowing where to go, and not even really knowing who to talk to. It's a hard thing, especially for men, to communicate these things.
You're right. It is. It's very difficult. We're conditioned to pick ourselves up by our bootstraps and just grit and bear it and go through it, and not supposed to show any quote unquote weakness. But what's interesting about this whole cycle that you were living in is that there's the shame of what was going on at night, or the peeing your pants and food all over the place, but then going back and there's no place to go, shameful activities, but then engaging in shameful activities to forget the shameful activities. It's this weird kind of cycle, right? So at one point you said enough is enough. And so from there, what did that process look like? How did you, because you kind of fast forward this. I'm thinking, and I don't want to lead the answer or lead the question, but at some point there's got to be some radical acceptance of the past, and then some kind of self-love moving forward. What did the process look like towards, and I know you even said that you got these handmade suits and tailor-made shoes, and you're finally in the greatest city in the world after you kind of turned your life around. And to me, that's just part of this journey that you're still on, right? From quote-unquote turning your life around. So my question, I guess, is what are some major points there that kind of keep you on track to keep moving forward, to not go backward, to continue to create this evolution of self?
Yeah, and I think you nailed it. And when you said, I'm like, yeah, that's what it really was. Like the cycle of shame really came down to the end. The same thing of being 12 years old was, look at all the stuff I'm doing. Who could ever love me? And that was the real cycle. Like now that I think, as we're talking more, it's just like, that's what it was. It was like, who could ever love someone so pathetic? And it really came, the getting out of the shower with the garden hose was still my ego and this greatness I felt inside of me, just not channeling in the right way. But like today, moving forward and realizing that those things weren't what I wanted in life, it's the same thing with the significance. There's certain things that trigger me and I have to channel them right. And the first thing is I'm loved. I'm lovable. I remember a moment where I was just thinking, man, I'm so unlovable. Nobody could ever love someone so, pathetic as me. Look at what my life is. And I said, you know what, Ben, why don't you just write down everybody that actually loves you? Looking at this sheet of paper, I take it out. I'm like, who loves me? With no pity party, truly in your heart, this person loves you. And I filled up a sheet of paper. And I told myself in that moment, you can never tell yourself that lie ever again. And one of the things I always need to do when I'm scared about going after something I want, when I start, going back to some of my bad habits so it doesn't cycle out of control, is I say out loud, Ben, you're lovable. And I just say it out loud, and it's like, okay, because that's one of those triggers, just like significance, right? It's that's the first thing. I have to continue to still ingrain in my life today. It's not something that's gone away from me. The other things is it's the people I'm around. I remember sitting at the bar one day and just being like, I'm so bored. Like I'm bored of these conversations. Like, these people, like I have nothing in common with them. I'm bored. And I just started changing the people I spent time with. And I really started protecting my tribe. Jim Rohn says you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I knew the 5 people I was spending the most time with, I didn't want to become. I didn't want to be there my whole entire life. So I just changed the people that I was with. And really the third thing is I looked at my fears, because we all have them. And instead of hiding them, instead of putting them in the closet, I've really taken my fears and I've kept them in front of me. And I look at them, because what we fear in life, we want most. And I just look at those fears and I say, how am I going to conquer that fear today? How am I going to conquer that fear? And some days I don't, some days I do. But the more and more I look at something I truly want, but I'm too afraid to go after, sooner or later, you're going to have that enough moment where you're like, no, I got to do it. And I just started putting myself in those kind of situations. And one of the fun ways I did it was when I was in New York City, I hired a coach and I ran around lower Manhattan stopping beautiful women. And you know, Josh, New York City's got a bunch of beautiful women. And I stopped them. I said, hey, you know, you caught my eye. And I just wanted to say hello, because if I didn't say hi, I'd kick myself later. And like, you know, doing these little actions to bust through fear. And it's fun. It's funny. But it was doing things like that. And the funny thing with that story is I remember no matter what the woman said, and sometimes they didn't say go away politely, but most of the time they did. But if I got the number or if I didn't, I always walked away from the conversation with the biggest smile on my face, because I knew I was going after what I wanted. So it's really those three things: letting myself know I'm loved, surrounding myself with the right people, and taking my fears and keeping them in front of me, because I know the things that I truly fear in life are what I want. And if I see them enough, sooner or later, I'm going to go after them.
Powerful, man. That's so powerful. Those three things that you do for yourself, or that you've been doing for yourself, those are huge actions that can keep anyone, I think, on the path that they want or have so chosen. And I want to kind of go in reverse and comment and maybe ask some more questions. But this idea of facing your fears, not an easy thing to do. And it's kind of like turning your enemy into a friend. You know, that sword that you have been wielding on yourself, self-doubt, self-loathing. I'm going to turn this around. You know, I'm going to turn this into something else. And you did. You know, you were speaking to women in Lower Manhattan kind of on a whim. Directed, of course. I think that's so powerful.
But it's other places where I was, you know, it allowed me that conversation to have the more powerful conversation, and that was with my mother, and letting her know how I felt and having that conversation. You know, that was a conversation that if I would have had more than once with my mother when I was 12 years old, if I would have reapproached it maybe when I was 13 or 14, I probably would have saved a lot of years of not feeling good enough if I would have, you know, taken that fear of that conversation and just had it.
How did that conversation go, by the way?
The first time it didn't go well. You know, it made my mother feel inadequate. She still doesn't like to hear it. But over time, it allowed the conversation to open up, and I got to learn my mother's story. You know, the story of being the second of 6 kids, and they were a baker's family, so you know, she didn't get much of anything. And she always felt like she was neglected, and she just wanted to make sure her daughter felt like that she got what, you know, my mother felt like she didn't get, you know. So it's, you know, we're all driven by our past, right?
Yes.
And, you know, so it wasn't easy, but we all, you know, it made the relationship stronger in the end.
I would think so, because you were now able to, first you were vulnerable with your mom, and then that vulnerability allowed you to then, and even if she was angry or didn't respond well, there was still some vulnerability to what she showed. And then it paved the way for empathy, I think, on both ends, which is really what's needed, and it brings you closer together. And I think that's what storytelling does. It allows you to really, okay, so they're not just that one size fits all token Polish guy or token mental health speaker. This guy likes dogs and he loves bacon and he had a terrible childhood, and that's kind of why he's so grumpy. I mean, there's so many reasons why people do what they do, and we are driven by our past. Or
even, oh, that's why they acted out that way, because that's what they were thinking. You know, that's the story that they were telling themselves. How many times have we had, you know, boyfriends or girlfriends where we had a fight because we didn't know what the other person was even thinking, the story that was going on in their head, right?
We made these assumptions, assumptions and expectations. I had a friend of mine, Frank, basically more or less said that expectations are the seeds of disappointment. Like, dude, so right on, you know, and you expecting your mom to give you something, which you, at the time, did not have the tools to do anything otherwise, because at that age, your parents are sort of the center of the universe. One of our other guests said before there was God, there was parents, and that's pretty true. You know, so of course we want validation, acceptance, and you wanted something that she just couldn't give at the time, and you can see that.
But now. It wasn't even that. It was something she didn't. I never told her how I needed it, and yes, I didn't have the communication tools for it, but. You know, I carried a lot of animosity for so many years against her when she never had the tools because she didn't know how I needed love.
Yes.
We all need love in different ways.
It's true.
And, the self-centered kid, my mom was working 60 hours a week, doing the laundry, taking me to soccer camp and soccer practice and basketball and baseball. She was doing all these things that she thought was showing that, that she cared about me. And, I didn't let her know what I really needed till 3 or 4 years ago.
Wow. I didn't realize it's been that short of a time period. I'm going to jump around a little bit. I want to get back to those 3 things that you do for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The middle one, so important because, I speak at a lot of universities, high schools, even middle schools. And one of my challenges, no matter what the message is that you are the company that you keep. You hang out with jokers, you're going to take on those attributes. You're going to sit around with barflies, you're going to have the same stupid conversation about Ronaldo or about the Philadelphia Eagles or whatever it is, you know what I mean? But if you hang out with 5 hustlers, we're doing good things, are empathetic and kind, you're going to take on those attributes. And so really, really important that you're living that message. And then point number 1, actually, do you still keep that sheet with people who love you on it?
I wish I still had it.
Okay, I was going to say add me to the list, But
Thanks,
I mean
Thanks,
that.
man.
I mean that. It sounds trite and silly, but I mean that.
I think in that moment I was still scared to see it, because I had held for so long in my life that I was worthless to see it. Why it made me feel warm, it also made me scared.
No, this is a big question, and I forgot about it for a couple minutes. Now I'm remembering it, and I actually can see myself sweating a little bit because I'm not sure how this is going to go. It's a big, big question, and the question is, because it has to do with love, you're talking about all these people loving you, but Benjamin, do you love yourself? Do you love yourself truly?
Yeah, and that's been going on. That's a year ago changed, and I'm an engineer by background, so I'm a very logical, math-oriented person. And first time I ever followed my heart was going to this men's retreat where this woo-woo spiritual energy stuff was going on. And in that space, I tapped into something where I started honoring my body more and realizing that's a piece of, the mind, body, spirit. If you believe in that, I do now. I had tapped into my body and I started standing in that power. And by having those 3 things in my life, all of a sudden I just allowed myself to love my own self. It's like, yeah, Ben, you are loved. Yes, Ben, you're loved. Yes, Ben, you're loved. But to, finally say, yeah, I love myself. And by loving myself made me get out of a job I didn't like. I got into that job because I wanted my father to be proud. He was an engineer. I quit that job. And entrepreneurship is another variation of you got to break through a lot of self-love. I haven't gone through all of the barriers yet, but it's a process. There's still it's a process, and I'm still in many ways a child when it comes to human connection and love and intimacy because I've only been exploring it for 3 years.
Thank you for opening up in that way. Because you say like a child, and I had to go through my own issues with self-love and love and intimate kind of love, and that means a lot of different things, of course. That's not subtext or a euphemism for sex. I mean intimate love on many different levels. And the root of that issue, for me, I think, is insecurities, and it's getting at the self-love and practicing that and living in that. And it's just the past, and it's like you say, it's an ongoing process. So I can completely relate to you on that. And that's why I'm really thankful that you brought that up. Because I think it was almost important for me to verbalize, to normalize this conversation, but also to, I don't know if on any level, maybe making you feel at ease as well. It's such a process. I mean, it's like progress, not perfection, right? It's the old addiction adage, but now
that's what keeps the coaches I coach alive, right? and
yeah.
All that work that we need.
True story, man. Okay, so this idea of, you said about a year ago you started tapping into self-love, and then a couple of years ago, and even prior to that, you had the discussion with your mom, and you've had a difficult time opening up. You said you're an introvert. So what was the light switch in your head as far as, I'm going to speak up, I'm going to speak my truth, I'm going to speak my story? What was the light switch?
I felt for so long that I needed to share it. It was something that I knew even at 17, 18, man, I just need to get this out of me. It was trapped inside of me. And, that story, it came into the fact of like, I want to do entrepreneurship. I wanted to get into the self-help space. And I knew in my soul that like I needed to, if I was going to impact the world, that like people needed to know where I came from. And, my journey of sharing my story was not as much about self-healing as it was a way to get into the entrepreneurial world. And when I opened that can of worms, I mean, I got healed. I got, momentum in my business, but also I started healing myself, sharing this stuff. And this interview in so many ways is nothing about like the book. It's nothing about, who's listening right now. It's a lot of it's like, I have to do this for me, because if I don't keep sharing this, I'm going to be back at that bar. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be back at it's a part of my healing process. I feel when we are healed, we can finally talk about it. And, this is one of those vehicles that allows me to stay strong and keep standing tall, I guess. I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, it does. And I would argue that not when you're healed, but as you're healing.
Because that's a lot better, yes.
Well, no, I'm not. But I just wanted to it was more for the listeners and for, the stray guests or the stray listener who may come in, and I don't want them to be turned off by something that you didn't even mean, and it's not even a big deal, but it was as you're healing, because I think we're all always healing. I put my arm through a window accidentally, believe it or not. It really was accidental. There's no rage issues. And I'm looking at it right now, and it's going to scar. I mean, it's scarring up, and it's closing at a stitch of clothes. But that thing, when I look at a scar on my foot from when I sliced it open as a teenager, and that thing, I mean, it's healed, but it's not really. I mean, there's stuff around or whatever. So I think we're always healing, right? The piece about sharing and telling, and I would argue too, that was the thing that spurred this thought, was that, yes, it's part of your healing process. But I think I would venture to guess, and this might be something to explore, but because you're telling your story, you're helping other people. And that, in and of itself, lends itself to a healthier self-esteem. The self-esteem, it's a positive form of the significance that you so crave. It's a much healthier outlet. And I even noticed, as you're saying, well, I needed to share, you were like, I want to go towards this entrepreneurship thing. And that was like, the vulnerability was sort of a means to an end. It wasn't really for yourself. It was really kind of to achieve that dream. It's kind of a happy accident that all these other things kind of came about. You being your most authentic self, you learning about yourself, you sharing your story, which is in turn helping me. I should let you know. So thank you.
Yes. I mean, a piece like my entrepreneurial journey, has always been about helping people. And I think there's a piece of all of us, only 10% of the world is narcissists. The other 90%, like we have a piece of us, whatever you want to call it. I call it the spiritual piece of us, this being, this energy where we want to help other people. Like we have something in our souls that is there for some reason, and is truly there just to help other people, because that's how we build civilizations and societies. That's why we are the dominant race, not just because we're really good thinkers, but we want to help each other out. And like that's like a piece of 90% of our population. And when you feel that energy, when I started my podcast and sharing my story and getting emails, like I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about those emails. I know I'm standing taller, and you can see my voice. I'm getting so much more excited, and it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm a speaker and I know how to change, my inflection of my voice and stuff. It's because like there is a spiritual energy in us that's about giving back. I mean, when I was in AA, it's about sharing your story. It's about helping people. It was about all of those things because, spiritually, whether it's God or just that human animalistic spirit of us, is about giving and sharing. It's like how good you feel when you give $1 to somebody at the cash register because they don't have the exact change. That makes you feel good. Like it's the same thing.
You know what? I think this is a great time to kind of switch gears a little bit. I want to do this thing called the quick fire round. This is kind of a little fun section because we talk about your story. We talk about some very poignant matters, some things in the past, and Benjamin, the entrepreneur, Benjamin, the vulnerable guy. But I want people to know all sides of Benjamin. So this is like our Tonight Show thing or Inside the Actor's Studio a moment. So I'm going to ask you some questions, brah.
All right.
No right or wrong answers, but you ready for this, dude?
I don't got a choice.
Yes, you don't. You really don't. All right. Benjamin, what is your favorite word?
My favorite word? Man, probably go for it. It's not one
Go
word.
for it.
It's more for it. Yeah.
All right. We're going to hyphenate the word. We're going to say
Right.
it's a go for it moment. All right.
All right.
I'm just using a sentence. So I just validated that last 30 seconds. Okay. So, Benjamin, what is your least favorite word?
Can't.
Yeah. That's one of my all-time least favorites too. It's a mindset.
Can't stand that word. Can't stand that word.
Can't do it. Can't figure it out. Have you tried this distance? Oh, yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Time to move on. All right. So, Benjamin, if somebody decided to make a movie of your life, let's actually we'll make it a USA miniseries, the 4-part miniseries, the Benjamin Tyler Show. It's a movie. It's heartfelt, hardcore. Who would play the title role?
Oh, well, I would instantly want to say me because I like
you're a raging
the
narcissist.
tension.
You're playing me. I'm a great actor.
I got probably Johnny Depp. I always like his kind
Ooh.
of I don't have any tattoos or anything, but I've always liked him and kind of his more raw side.
Yeah, no, I like me some Johnny Depp, and that means that the movie will get made. Benjamin Tyler is Benjamin Tyler.
Yeah,
I'm not
he
gonna
needs
lie.
money, right? He's bankrupt.
Yeah,
he
man.
needs money.
Well, he does. I'm jockeying for a role in this film as well. I don't know what I'm going to be. Maybe I'll be the bartender at every single bar that you've ever gone to, just with different disguises. Yeah, I'll make good money on that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just throwing things out there. All right. So moving right along, I think I got 2 more actually. So Benjamin, who or what is your spirit animal?
My spirit animal. It would probably be a lion.
Why?
I just I like the power. You see it. It's silent. The introvert in me, but there's a silent power to it.
Dig it. I thought you were going to say Jim Rohn, to be honest with you. Like he's your spirit animal, but I like the lion. The lion works. All right. So last one, Benjamin. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say to you as you enter or as you get kicked out?
Interesting question. I would picture something very simple, just welcome and a high five. I don't want a handshake. Just give me a high five, maybe a hug, and let me get some of that heaven you've been talking about.
Yeah,
I don't want to talk to God. I want to experience my heaven.
That's right. I'm seeing more of like a bro hug. The one arm sort of a thing.
With the back of the fist on the back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I would pay to see that actually. Hopefully I get in.
I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting with God for you to make sure.
Sweet. That means you're getting there before I am. All right. We'll work that out later.
Okay.
Awkward. All right. Moving right along. That's the end of the quick fire round. Thank God. It was going sideways. Benjamin, man, what is the next 6 months to a year hold for you, man? Like personal life, business life, whatever you want to share, man. What's going down next 6 months to a year?
I really don't know. And I say that in the best way possible because, Client Enrollment Academy is taken off and we'll see where that goes. And that's my primary focus. But a piece of me now just allows myself to be open to opportunity. So I have absolutely no clue. All I know is Client Enrollment Academy will still exist. If I'm still here in Wisconsin, I don't know. If I'm out by you in LA, that'd be awesome. Who knows?
All right. I like that. Some very directed optimism. And, knowing you, man, you're going to land on your feet. You're going to figure out. I mean, the Client Enrollment Academy is a really cool piece of your work and kind of excited to see where that's going. And a couple other things we've talked about on the side. I don't know. I'm seeing some good things coming your way. If people want to get in touch with you, yeah, man, absolutely. If people want to get in touch with you, find out more about Client Enrollment Academy or just want to ask you a question or say hello or whatever, what have you, what's the best way or a couple ways that people could do that?
I mean, I think the best way, regardless of who you are, is just go on Facebook, look up Benjamin Tyler. I'm like the only one. If you're an Instagram person, go to Instagram, Benjamin Tyler, and I manage my own accounts. I'll talk to you, and I share my story there a lot. Inspirational pieces, things that you can take and apply to your life.
Awesome. Yeah, and you go live a lot too, so I would definitely encourage people to check that out because you speak it like it is, and it's very engaging. So cool, man. Well, I so appreciate you coming on and just having a conversation, man. I learned a lot, and I really, honestly, I feel like it deepened our friendship because I got to learn some stuff about you. So I appreciate as well. But overall, man, just thank you so much for coming on today.
Hey, I just love spending time with you and your audience because, we're all here because we've been somewhere that we need to share.
Your story.
You've been listening to the I'm Possible Project show with Joshua Rivedal and guest Benjamin Tyler. I love sharing stories and how to turn impossible into I'm possible. If you want more inspirational stories, our second and third books are in pre-order right now. Changing Minds, Breaking Stigma, Achieving the Impossible, as well as Lemonade Stand. Both contain powerful stories of overcoming tremendous odds. When life gives you lemons, squeeze, add sugar, and pick up a copy of The I'm Possible Project. www.IamPossibleProject.com/pre-order. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're more than a community. You're part of the I'm Possible family. Until next time, sending you lots of love.